Hi again. It's literally been less than a minute since my last video, but small chunks, baby steps, right? I thought it would be interesting to go ahead and make a video post about my thoughts on the Force and see what people think about that. I also think it'd be neat to start doing video responses or video replies. I don't know if the website can handle that. I guess it's all posted on the YouTube, so it shouldn't be bad. But I get into phases, it seems, as far as thinking about philosophies on life and whatnot. But the other day I was thinking about the Force again. And because to me, trying to understand the Force is like trying to understand God. And I think anybody who gets into spirituality that is comfortable with using the term God should spend time considering what God is to them. Like I said in my first video, I grew up Catholic, and so in all Christian sects, there seems to be a pretty standard viewpoint of what God is. And to the way I always understood, they viewed God was more of a personal deity, not a personal deity like your own person, like God, but like God is very human in his characteristics, and that on a psychological view is known as anthropomorphism, where you basically attribute human characteristics to inanimate objects. Now, God, or this thing that people call God, isn't necessarily inanimate, but it makes me wonder to what extent humans are just giving this thing that we call God human characteristics because of the way that we understand things. And when thinking about the Force, language is limited, and I think a lot of people get wrapped up around how exactly you can explain things with your language, where, like in the study of Buddhism, the core tenet of Buddhism is experience. And Taoism, the same thing. The first chapter is the Tao that can be expressed or said, is not the eternal Tao, which is exactly what I'm saying as well, that trying to understand God and understanding the Force, it has to be from inside, intuitively, and trying to put it into language will always fall short. That doesn't mean we shouldn't try, and I think that gets into philosophies and stuff that like Plato and Socrates and stuff would talk about. But Force, somebody mentioned a term that I had actually not heard of, surprisingly, because that's what I largely think. On what I think it was a shout box on the temple, the Jedi Order. I see why people say TOTJO? TOTJO? Yeah. As far as pantheism being the belief that all things are God, and God is basically the sum of all things, and therefore I'm God, and you're God, and this phone is God. And I think that's a really neat concept, because it's very similar to what Christians teach as far as God is in everything. And I got into an interesting discussion with some Latter-day Saints, and I was trying to explain to them that I thought that tree over there was God, and that was fun. But yeah, so, because I'm more comfortable using the term God now. I used to not, because that to me was too Christian, and I disagreed with the idea that there is a deity outside of existence that has human characteristics and that created everything, and because I thought that was very self-centered for humans to think that. Very understandable, being the way that we are, and being imperfect, and that's just kind of natural for us to do that. But I think that if somebody's really trying to search for the truth, they would have as much suspicion on that as I do. So I've been looking a lot at things like E equals mc squared, being that all matter and energy are the same thing, and if you go with the assumption that basically everything is energy, then you could say, well, maybe the force is energy. And this is the interesting thing that I thought of just the other day, is that energy is one thing, but the way energy behaves can almost be, or could be classified as something else. And let me see if I can explain that better. Like, there's different types of energy, and if we go off the E equals mc squared, which means that all matter is essentially energy, just condensed into matter. So I'm basically just looking at energy, but anything in existence, it is something as far as like its makeup, but how it behaves, its characteristics, the laws, or the not the laws, I mean those are our laws, but how it behaves, interaction with other things, is something different. Yeah, it's based off of what it is, but basically what I'm getting at is maybe that's the force. May the force be with you. May the way things behave be on your side. Anyways, that's just kind of a thought that I came up with. I could probably ramble for another 30 minutes on force ideas, but I'm only at 7 minutes. This is nice, turning the camera around because I can see the time on it. But yeah, so I thought pantheism was a neat idea, and it seems very similar to what kind of lies at the core of Jedi, but I do know that there are a lot of Jedi out there that are still Christian, and I don't disagree with them to the point that I think that they're wrong, because I don't know, and that was one of the biggest things that allowed me to kind of leave, or be comfortable leaving Christianity, because there's a lot of fear in Christianity as far as if you don't believe a certain thing, or if you don't do things a certain way, then you'll spend all eternity in a hell. And so the whole idea of leaving Christianity was a very stressful time, especially any time that I would see a sign that says God saves or something, which, the reason I see those signs is because I'm in a Christian environment, especially growing up in the Midwest, Bible Belt. I would see those types of things. So it wasn't necessary. I had to get over the idea that, God is trying to talk to me, still thinking that God was human-like, and just realizing that, I'm in a Christian environment. So, and that could be, it's all a matter of how you look at things and what you believe things to be. But I like to try to look at things in the most logical standpoint, which is why I get into a lot of the physics and science and stuff, as far as like what is seeable, and then how does that apply to what is not seeable, as far as like philosophy and ideas on life. Another thing that to me defines being a Jedi is understanding yourself. That being one of the hardest things that any human could do, and I think that in itself is a very noble cause, a noble task, a noble undertaking, and I think one of the main reasons that Jedi in the fiction like Yoda talk about how the path of a Jedi is not easy, and I think mostly because you have to confront your internal demons and your difficulties and be brutally honest with yourself. And I inadvertently was working on that since a kid, growing up watching the Ninja Turtles. They had a lot of philosophy and ideals and in the TV show, and that's kind of what started me on. And it's another interesting thing to think about as far as like developmental psychology and where we come from. You know, what forces which were around as we were on our earliest years in life, to what extent did they have an influence on how we are now? And that in itself can be a very difficult thing to even consider. There's a book called The Highly Sensitive Person, which I strongly suggest all Jedi to look into, at least read the synopsis of some sort to give you an idea what it's about. But I feel that all Jedi are highly sensitive people. I also feel that most Jedi are gifted people, and gifted in the sense of like intellectually gifted. And I think, and in a lot of ways, those two things go hand in hand. But I think that the giftedness is kind of where the drive to help others in a more, you see your community larger than most, in a sense where your community is not just the people that you physically interact with, but that are the people in another city, in your country, in the world around you. You have a much bigger viewpoint on life. That's my personal opinion. I haven't spent a lot of time like backing that up or researching that, but look up giftedness on like Wikipedia or some books and stuff. Also, I think it's The Gifted Adult is a really good book, but The Highly Sensitive Person talks about looking into your past, into your childhood. And I had thought that I had a pretty good understanding of the forces that I was, I say forces, so that's the way things behave maybe. Influences, not just the energy itself that was there, but how the forces of my childhood would be the things that caused me to behave the way that I am. And that's something non-physical. Even in the sense of energy, it's a painting, it's a pattern. And so the force is something even more mysteriously than I originally thought, because I thought the force would have been just energy. And anyways, sidetracking. The Highly Sensitive Person brought up topics that made me, it was an audiobook actually, but it made me put it down to the point where it took me, several days to a couple weeks to come to terms with even looking at deeper parts of my childhood. And the moral of me talking about this is that trying to understand ourselves as Jedi, as human beings, as like self-centered egos, being that we are, is difficult. And I commend every person, every human being that tries to understand themselves better. And most of the times when people are trying to understand themselves, they want to better themselves. So if the Jedi could be anything that I would still want to be a part of, it would be a group of people that strive to know themselves and improve their condition so that they're not uneducated humans. So I'll leave you at that. I really look forward to reading your replies. Thanks to the 9 people that have watched my other video. A couple of them might be me. But yeah, I appreciate everybody being here. And I really like how fast things are going right now as far as building up the friendship level of things, putting names to faces, or faces to names, if you will. Yeah, it's nice being here. It's nice having a way to connect with people that are like-minded. So please, if you have the time, and I would think it'd be really neat to reply to any of my videos with a video. So may the Force be with you, whatever it is.